How to report misinformation online. This is the FDA.
The FDA?
This is the top thing on the very front of their website. How to report misinformation online. Remember, this is the same FDA that just approved a drug for which they have no evidence that it is actually better than the existing drug. We face the challenge of an overabundance of information related to our public health. Overabundance of information. Some of this information may be false and potentially harmful. Editorial comment. Yep, a lot of that's coming from you guys. Inaccurate information spreads widely and at speed, making it more difficult for the public to identify verified facts and advice from trusted sources, such as the FDA. However, everyone can help to stop the spread. Yes, they did. Everyone can help to stop the spread.
Yes.
Not of viruses anymore. It's misinformation that we're stopping the spread of now.
That's the real killer.
If you see content online that you believe to be false or misleading, there's a typo, but okay, to be false or misleading, you can report it to the applicable platform, and they have helpful links to Facebook, TikTok, Instagram, LinkedIn, Twitter, WhatsApp, and YouTube.
Fantastic.
Fantastic. Thank you, FDA. Now,
you know what's not on that list? Rumble.
Yeah. Yeah, indeed. Okay, so stay on my screen here for a moment. That's remarkable.
Yeah.
That is remarkable. That is the top thing on the FDA's site. That's what happens when you click this little read more button. Okay? Okay. Let's go down. Let's see what else the FDA has in store for us. Sun protection options for all ages. Get our expert tips on how to stay safe in the sun for every stage of life. From sunglasses to sunscreen, find the way that works best for you. Now, I'm not going to read through this whole thing, but I will tell you this. The FDA, which just approved a drug on the basis of no evidence that it is better than an existing drug, but the new drug is 40 times more expensive than the existing drug, is promoting two things primarily on its site at the moment. Calling in misinformation when you see it and trusting only verified facts that you get from places like the FDA, and all of the dangers of being in the sun. Here's the way that you can protect yourself from the sun, the sun, the sun, the sun. It's super dangerous. There was literally nothing in this article I searched mentioning benefits of the sun, vitamin D, near-infrared radiation, anything about the fact that actually we need sun exposure to be healthy. Nope. The FDA, much like the WHO last week, we talked about the WHO last week, and they're getting up on their high horse about salt. It's salt that's the enemy, not the experimental treatments that you forced almost everyone on the planet to take. Nope, it's salt. Well, the FDA is pushing a new hyper-expensive antibiotic on you, which we don't actually know if it's safe or effective, and warning you, because it is an agency that cares about your health, to make sure to stay out of the sun no matter what. That is our public health apparatus as it stands in 2023.
It's obscene.
It is obscene.
And okay. Am I seeing a mirage or what? You've got an agency that's supposed to be on our side that has been captured by the thing it's supposed to be regulating and is clearly working for them, yep, advocating a monolithic approach to sun exposure that will make people unhealthy across the board because of the wide number of processes in which vitamin D appears to be an important player, yep, creating ill health, which then will result in the prescription of drugs that these people make. Yes. Did I imagine that?
No, you did not imagine it. It's if you had said that to me 20 years ago, I would have said, "Come on, man, stop."
But
no,
20 minutes
that's
ago,
not
you
going to
would have
happen.
gotten it.
20 minutes ago, yep, 20 minutes ago, it didn't begin to make sense, but it did begin to feel like reality. And that's an important distinction.
Okay. Again, things that seem like they would have to be mirages, right? Okay, the CDC didn't botch the job when it came to COVID. They got it upside down. If you did the opposite of what they told you to do, you'd be way better off, right? Yes. You should be at the skate park. You should be at the beach. You should treat the disease early. You should take vitamin D. The opposite of their advice was the right thing to do.
Yep.
This idea that the FDA is recommending that you avoid the sun, and mind you, I'm not telling you to get a sunburn, right? Sunburns are bad. there are ways to avoid sunburn. Sunscreen may be involved, but you want to be very careful because A, it actually is a complex chemical compound that enters your system more than likely, depending upon which version you have. If you're spraying it on, you're going to be inhaling it. All sorts of hazards that go along with it, right? It should be dealt with very carefully, and it should be dealt with sparingly because you want to have, as we talked about at length during the pandemic, whatever that even means, right? Vitamin D is essential. It is best produced on the skin. We are almost all who live at high latitudes deficient, especially during the winter. They are committing malpractice on their site, not telling you, at the very least, sun exposure is a trade-off. Tumors are a hazard. You need to avoid tumors that are induced by sun exposure. Short of tumors, you need to get sun exposure so you produce enough vitamin D to be healthy and fend off disease. It's simple. It needed to be said, and it's not said, and that is, they're not doctors, so I guess it isn't malpractice. It's criminal negligence or something. But
well, I guess I wonder. I wonder about beginning to use the word treason. It's a public health agency paid for by our tax dollars. And I did not find a mission statement. Probably there's one on their site. I was so shocked at the misinformation and sun stories that were at the top of their site that I stopped there. But it seems to me that their mission has to be related to protecting the health and well-being of the American public who paid their bills. And they're doing the opposite. We've got 3 stories today, right? Doshi's reporting on their pushing through of this drug for which they don't have the evidence, and that's putting it nicely, to have pushed it through. And then they have the FDA saying that you really need to get your facts from them and maybe a few other sources and report misinformation that you find online, and then arguing that any and all sun exposure is bad. Like literally not a mention, not even a throwaway phrase in this piece about the benefits of, they could have done it. They could have said benefits of limited sun exposure,
sun exposure.
Before 10 or after 2, I don't buy that either. But they could have done it in a way that at least wasn't egregiously anti-scientific and known to just about everyone at this point to be bad health advice. Protect yourself from all of the sun at all times? No. Just no. So what is their job? What do they understand their job to be? And if their job is, as I think it must be, as an agency funded by American taxpayers, to work for us, and they are actively providing information that is bad for us, maybe it's too strong a word, but it feels treasonous.
Well, I'll push back a little bit on that, not because I don't think in the aggregate it is, because it obviously is. The question is, how does it happen, right? Treason is something that individuals are guilty of, right?
And it requires intent or no?
Yeah.
Okay.
It does. The problem is there's an awful lot of the banality of evil, where people who are doing something narrowly end up as part of an evil structure, right? They end up staffing something. And, at the point that you're manning a gas chamber, you're guilty, right? At the point that you're filing paperwork for the equipment that is involved in creating gas chambers, it's a different question, right? You should know, but do you?
It's possible that you don't.
Right. And
cognitive dissonance is powerful.
Right. And part of the game that's been played on these agencies is they are, in my opinion, deliberately underfunded, right? So they're stressed.
So as to fund the IRS.
Right. But they're deliberately underfunded so that they have to cut corners, so that they are grateful for the fees that they get from the companies that they are then supposedly regulating.
Right.
They can't attract the best talent because the jobs don't pay well. And so the point is, the whole thing is built to produce this outcome.
But yes, all true, I don't even know what the best talent means at this point. The schools are so bad. There are a lot of people who have the appropriate credentials who would look at that piece on the sun and say, well, yeah, of course, you have to stay out of the sun. Oh, we are probably killing people again by suggesting that you need to be out in the sun. Like, that's going to be the insane criticism that comes our way, because we are saying, look, this one doesn't even require that much nuance, but there are trade-offs, and nuance is required. And if you're going to pick a single metric, a single answer, it's go out in the sun. But actually, a single answer isn't the right one. It's moderate and mitigate and pay attention to how you feel and don't burn, but yes, get exposure to the sun on your skin and generate vitamin D, because that is the best way to do it, better than eating it in your food, and it's hard to get in your food. And that way, you are likely to improve your health far more than most medicines you could take.
I agree with that perspective. I also think that once again, we are in a position to do a vastly better job, right? What they have effectively done is they have given you advice that, if we are maximally generous, focuses on one parameter, your likeliness of triggering a melanoma from a sunburn, right? If that was the only health consideration, then the advice to effectively get yourself out of the sun, and if you can't get yourself out of the sun, then use sunscreen to block out as much of the sun as you can, right? We can also say that much as the insanity of the recommendations that came in the pandemic was visible in the complete failure to risk stratify anything, right? The point is, get your shot. Really? I'm 7 and I'm healthy and I'm a boy and I would get myocarditis more likely from your shot than I would get from
anything else I could possibly do.
Right. So we're not going to, exempt the 7-year-old healthy child. We're not going to exempt the person who has natural immunity from having already been infected and gotten over it, right? And then in this case, the sun exposure thing. Did you find anywhere in looking at their site on ways to avoid the sun anything that mentioned the fact that depending on your race, that this is a very different consideration? Because there's another one of these, just as with COVID, your risk from COVID went up with age and your risk from the shots went up with youth, right? We have a case here where your risk of vitamin D deficiency goes up with the darkness of your skin. So, telling people avoid the sun, use sunscreen, does that make sense to tell a black person whose ancestors come from close to the equator, who's, moved to Minnesota to avoid the sun? No, the answer is actually you're in danger of vitamin D deficiency,
right,
and you're probably in essentially no danger from skin cancer. Right.
So they say they have 2 mentions in this piece. One sentence, people of all skin colors are at risk for this damage. Okay. The second one is slightly better. People of all skin colors are potentially at risk for sunburn and other harmful effects. Same article, right? The first sentence I read said everyone's at risk. The second sentence says people of all skin colors are potentially at risk for sunburn and other harmful effects of UV radiation. So always protect yourself. Be especially careful if you have pale skin or blonde, red, or light brown hair. So
yeah, it doesn't. First of all, it doesn't get anywhere near.
But there's never anything. There's nothing positive that I saw in here, and I didn't, by searching all the terms I could possibly think to, which ever suggests that there is a moment when there might be a benefit to you for being in the sun without being protected.
Yeah, which is bonkers.
Yep. So that's the FDA.
Yeah.
Yeah. Last week we talked about the WHO, and wasn't any better.
All of the agencies have to be captured. Otherwise, it's a zero as a special number question. Because if there was an issue, in some sense, the British Medical Journal is the weird exception, right?
Sure is.
It's a journal in which you've got an editor who's wide awake, who's talking about, the absurdity of what's going on at the FDA. That's a threat to the FDA and pharma for which it shills, and And I don't know. I hope Doshi succeeds in his mission.